Thunderbolts, directed by Jack Schreier, written by Eric Pearson. So, is Thunderbolts worth your time? Yes. Right off the bat, yes, and let me tell you why. It's a well-made film, simple as that. The MCU just hasn't been doing well for a variety of reasons, but I think first and foremost is the quality of storytelling. These films just aren't made right, they feel very rushed, they feel very sloppy. I feel like this movie's getting a lot of praise for its message about depression and stuff. Though that is special, and I'll get into that, I do think the praises that should be saying the loudest is that it's quality. It's very well made, very well written, and very well directed. So right off the bat, I just want to say that. I want to start off by talking about the opening sequence, because I feel like the opening sequence, the first 10-15 minutes of the film, it really does a good job of just setting the tone, and I think, that's a great opening. So we start off following Yelena, and she's doing some sort of black op, and we start off with narration while she's doing it. So she's on top of the building, as we've seen in the trailers, skydiving, all this stuff. There's narration of her talking about where she is in life, emotionally and mentally. So right away setting the tone, serious, but of course there's a flair of MCU humor. There's a flair of dark humor, as many people have when they're a bit depressed. Talks about feeling depressed, unfulfilled, feeling lost, and again, setting the tone, the themes of the film that will be explored later on. And then there's a one-take hallway fight scene, and we've seen a billion of those, especially in Daredevil, but this one was done as an overhead shot with one source of light, and that makes for a visually striking image because it's an overhead shot. Obviously there's a bunch of fighting, but because there's one source of light, there's like really long drawn out black shadows, and aesthetically it looked really cool. It was almost like foreshadowing a void, because we've all seen those like dead shadows that he does after he kills someone. So it's like foreshadowing and visually striking, and it's just great direction, because had they tried to focus too much on hand-to-hand combat and comedy and whatnot, it would take away from the narration, because obviously we have to listen to what she's saying. But with an overhead, like kind of distant oneer like that, it makes perfect sense, which is why I dislike the oneer in the Daredevil show, because it was so distant and I felt like we should have been intimate in that fight scene. But anyways, enough dogging on that show. As the film progresses, we learn that operation that she's doing is tied to the main plot. So it's an essential scene as well. It means something to the story. It's not just a side mission just for the sake of an introduction to the characters and to the film. So I just feel like that scene is a perfect representation of the film, and it's just a great way to start it. The script is very tight, very good, very well paced, and I feel like that's been my issue with a lot of these films lately, or these shows like Daredevil. Like, the pacing sucks. It's all over the place. They're trying to do too much. The writer can't handle it, And I feel like this film was very simple, and it let scenes breathe. So like literally, like, you've heard me, if you've seen my videos, you hear me say that a lot. It doesn't let it breathe. The scenes don't breathe, And I feel like that's what it does here. And if you really look at the film, it's like divided in like 3 set pieces. It's like the introduction with Yelena, and then that scene when all our main players meet, all our Thunderbolts meet in that like facility, and that's when they learn about Bob, Sentry. So that's one set piece, right? And that lasts like 30 minutes or 40 minutes, I don't know. It's like, okay, we need to get to New York, which, as we know from the trailers, that's the big fight scene at the end. So it's a very simple structure, not a lot of different set pieces, but because they drag it out, they let the character writing really tell the story. And that's why, again, it's such a good script, because it's like, how do we get out of the situation with all these different personalities meeting for the first time? And I feel like another film with a more talentless writer, they would have added a bunch of different sequences in this film, a bunch of different things to keep the plot moving, and to, I don't know what, like, they just always interject all these weird storylines that just don't make sense. Feels like they're doing too much, or they're trying to add Marvel Easter eggs, and this one just drags it on. But I don't want to use the word drag, because that sounds negative. I guess it just expands it, Throughout the scene, all these characters are just fighting, verbally and physically, and just arguing, and we're just getting to see everyone's personalities, because of course most normies haven't seen all of these shows. A lot of us, myself included, don't even remember the ghost character from Ant-Man. I mean, I remember the character, I just barely remember her story. So it's like, we don't really remember, so we can't rely on that knowledge. So instead, we just see their personalities interacting with each other. It's great screenwriting. It's pretty funny. The movie is actually very funny very light, even though it has to do with depression. And the performances are great, like I said. Everyone here is very, very good. To me, the standout is Wyatt Russell. That's his name, right? Kurt Russell's son, the U.S. agent, or Varsity Captain America, as they call him. He was very good. I really, really like him. I liked him in the Captain America Winter Soldier show. Like, the show sucked, but his character, I think the ideal with his character representing like a modern soldier, not necessarily a good man like Steve Rogers. That was a cool story. And that kind of gets into my negatives, which I'll get into in a bit. Yeah, he was really good. His performance was really good. Almost every scene, at least in the beginning, in the first half of the film, he's kind of like an antagonist. So he's like constantly what the other Thunderbolts are like going up against, and it makes for entertaining dialogue. You know, Bob, I don't remember his name, but the guy from Top Gun Maverick, very good acting. He portrays many aspects of that character, and I think he just really did an outstanding performance. He's very vulnerable, very timid, very weak, very meek. Like, he just plays that weak, lonely male figure very well. But when he gets power and he just shifts a little bit, he's also intimidating, and he sells it as well. And I just think he did a very great performance, really sold that character, really made us understand that character. The rest of the Thunderbolts, Ghost and Red Guardian, good. You know, David Harbour, very funny. I was actually worried from the trailers that he was just gonna be a joke the whole time, which in a way he was, but he still had a lot of heart, you know. And Ghost barely says anything, but she does a good job. And here's where I get into my negatives, and I don't know how to feel about it actually. It's kind of a mixed bag for me of how to juggle these two things. So I just praise the film for being simple and for letting scenes breathe and all that, having a simple structure. But at the same time, I feel like I would have wanted us to dive more into each character, like for them to have their own arcs or something. Like John Walker, that's his name, right? Walker. I really like his character and all that, but we don't really get a full arc with him. We don't really get like a growth with him. And same with Ghost, same with the Elena in a way. The only person who has like a real arc is Bob, is Sentry. So a part of me wishes we got more, because then the characters feel soulless, right? But at the same time, I feel like had they tried to add different storylines, then the film would have got messy. Then I feel like we run the risk of being like old Marvel, where it's just like, oh, are we supposed to care about these characters? Like with this crap storyline, like, oh, my mother's in the hospital, I had a bad childhood, like the crap we've seen a billion times. So on some level, like it feels like a negative, but on some level, I'm like, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is why it works. Like, we got just enough of these characters to be like, they're human, they have a past, they're struggling, they have internal struggles, they could relate to the overall themes of depression, worthlessness, and all that. But there's not really an arc. So I think that really just is a subjective thing. It depends, because I think I like it the way it was, the way they did it. But I do think there's a version of this film where it could have been incredibly deep, and like all these storylines were very fleshed out, and everyone just has a character. You know, like I think there's a version where it's just like this outstanding film, and it doesn't quite go there, but it's not necessarily a problem. That's the thing. They did they did it right. And Bucky, he's like a side character almost. He's not part of the main Thunderbolts for most of the film, but I think he's really good. His acting's really good. His story is interesting. Like, it's interesting seeing him in this senator role where he's kind of like Steve Rogers, almost like a man at a time, like not relating to other people, and just like not feeling like he belongs here. Like, he belongs in the field, you know. He's a soldier. So his storyline was pretty good, and when he shows up, it was cool. It's crazy because I'm someone, obviously, he goes to the theater a lot. I see trailers multiple times, you know, and sometimes I'll see a trailer and I'm like, oh, I love that trailer. And 2 weeks later, you ask me again, I'm like, bro, I'm sick of that trailer because I've seen it so many times, right? So I've seen the Thunderbolts trailer many times. And obviously that scene where we see Bucky on the motorcycle with the shades, we've seen like versions of that scene many times, or at least I have. And I feel like constantly in Marvel films, or just in big budget films with a lot of trailers, when we get to that scene in the film, it feels like, oh, I've seen this already, I know where it goes. Even though that's true for this, it worked very well in the context. And again, I think that just is because of the writing and the direction. in the context of the film, it's just such an exciting scene, you know. And I was and am a big Bucky fan. Like, I saw the Winter Soldier 6 times in the theaters back in the day, and when Civil War came out, I was all about Bucky, and I was just always a huge fan of that character in high school. I still get excited with him, but you know, because of the way Marvel has been, of course, I'm like, my excitement is much more managed and suppressed now. So when Bucky was coming on the motorcycle, I was like, okay, that's cool. And then as the scene progresses, the film just does a really good build up to his character, and just almost treating Bucky as like a mythical figure. Like, it's the Winter Soldier, it's Bucky. And I just felt myself getting freaking excited, and the scene pays off, and I think it's really well done. It's really badass. And I think it was a really cool introduction for that character. And it was fitting. Like, they gave that character respect, you know? And I really like that. Again, he wasn't a main character, but I think he was utilized very well. He wasn't disrespected, he wasn't cast aside. His story, even though it was a side plot, it was relevant to the main plot. So like, again, it goes back to the script, a very tight, well-written script. And finally, the depression element to it. Again, I feel like that's everyone's main takeaway. Like, oh, finally a film about depression, about mental health. It has a real message. And like, it's true, but I just don't think that's why the film's good. I think it's the writing and the direction, you know? But that element was handled pretty well, you know? Like, on some level, it's a little surface level, you know? Like, on some level, it's not... That's the thing, it's a Marvel film. Like, I can't expect this message to be like proper real therapy and like, I don't know, like, whatever. I don't want to get too hung up on that, you know? It's not important. This is a superhero film, but it does speak to it, you know? So I think it does a good job on that level, speaking to that issue, speaking to that very relatable issue. Because at the end of the day, the film's message is kind of like, you just gotta have friends around you, you know, and you're not alone. And yeah, you know, that's a good message. You know, I'm not saying it's a bad message, but I just don't think it's the most nuanced, incredible take ever, you know. But as I said, it's done very well, like everything else in this film. Yeah, I just feel like if you watch a lot of anime, if you watch a lot of other forms of media, Star Wars, old Star Wars, as I just did a video on, it's like the dark and the light, you know, like that's what all these stories are about. All these mythical stories should be very psychological, about internal struggles. And I feel like that's what Void and Sentry represent, the dark and the light within ourselves. And he's just a very broken, exaggerated version of that. And again, done very well. It's not necessarily a complaint. I'm just saying, like, I'm just addressing it, how like that's been the number one thing everyone talks about. The film's about mental health, but it was done very well. It tugged at the heartstrings. I saw the film with a couple normies, and they really loved that aspect, and it really touched them. So it did its job well, you know, like I said. And yeah, I mean, I rambled a lot. It's funny. My intention with this review was to keep it short and just be kind of like, you know what, like, watch the film, blah blah blah, like, just tell you what you need to know so that you could go watch it. Because I do think this movie needs to be supported, because it's probably not going to do good at the box office, and I think it deserves to, because it's a really well-made film. And Marvel, you know, they need that incentive to make these high quality films, not just like putting out films full of cameos and just big villains and the world's gonna end, you know. So I want people to support this film, because it's what we should be getting from Marvel, you know. Yeah, clearly I had a lot to just say, you know, to just release, because yeah, like I said, this film was a good one, and I'm definitely gonna rewatch it. And this is the first time in a long time that I'm gonna rewatch a Marvel film just because it was good. Because Deadpool Wolverine, that doesn't really count. Like I've said in my review, I don't think it's the best made film. Like, I do think that movie, it feels good, it's fun, and a lot of cool cameos, you know. But it's not a very good film. And obviously I saw that movie again for the cameos and just for like the vibes of nostalgia, you know. But in terms of like, dude, that movie was so good, I can't stop thinking about it. I need to watch it again. That's been years, dude. So Thunderbolts will be the first film in years that I'm gonna go back to watch, because it's just good. So that says a lot. I hope you guys check it out. Let me know your thoughts on the film if you've seen it already, and let me know if I've swayed you. I hope the normies, you know, I hope I swayed you a little bit to take a chance on this film. I do think it's worth your time. Yeah, I think you'll leave the theater feeling like that was a good time, and that was a good film, you know. Like, that was, like I said, solid. Not necessarily the best, not necessarily the greatest Marvel film, but a solid film, absolutely. Thanks for watching.